is going to speak first, and then we've asked the people from both the Senate and the House to come and share a few words, and then I'll be the first speaker, and then we'll ask you questions. So, Senator, speak first.
Thank you. Thank you, Majority Leader. I'm sure your cameras are still working. I know you've been hopping from place to place, so we appreciate you being here. Again, this is, as Senator Biggs just said, a response from a few members of the Senate and the House to just comment, of course, on the Supreme Court's 10-7 decision today. Before I start, I just want to thank God for this day. I want to thank Him for the blessings He continues to give us on another day of freedom. And, of course, I want to thank Him for this decision. This is a great decision for the state of Arizona. It's a little unfortunate that not every provision got upheld, but the most important did. And what I want to say briefly is the majority of 1070 is still held. Okay, only 4 provisions went to the Supreme Court, but there's many others that did not. So the majority of 1070 survived. Let's just say this onslaught. I want to say a few quick points. I'm going to turn over to some of my colleagues as well. But first and foremost, again, I think this is a great day for Arizona. It's nice to know that the 10th Amendment is still alive and well in the United States of America. I can't tell you how just absolutely frustrating it's been that we, as Arizonans, try to protect our citizens, try to protect the people here of this state and ultimately this country, and people call us every name in the book for doing it. And I'm just so pleased that the justices 8-0 in this decision. In this particular decision, a unanimous decision by the justices to uphold the most important part of 1070. I'm especially pleased with Justices Scalia and Thomas and their very, very pointed comments for the federal government and what they had to say about Arizona's rights and the federal government's inaction and what they've done to hurt this nation and the state by not allowing us to do what it is that we need to do because of the federal government's inaction. So again, specifically, I want to point out those justices and thank them for their comments. Before I turn it over to Representative Kavanaugh, I do want to say there's one person that certainly wanted to be here today, but could not. He is out of state on a prior engagement. And that, of course, is former Senate President Russell Pierce. You know, I've stood on the Senate floor, and I've said, when 1070 is ruled by the United States Supreme Court, a lot of people will owe, whether they give it to him or not, will owe Russell Pierce a very big apology. And the reason is he's been lambasted and skewered and called every name in the book for simply wanting to stand up for Arizona and defend the people here. And the fact that he's been treated the way he's been treated is an affront. And to all the people of Arizona, I truly believe that. So I want to especially Senator Russell Pierce, who again wanted to be here for clinic. Thank you for his diligence. Thank you for starting this. I truly hope he is vindicated by this. The United States Supreme Court upheld SB 1070, ladies and gentlemen, the law that everybody called him a racist over. The highest law in the land upheld it. And again, he has deserved one, and he owed one, and I just hope that he gets one. So personally, I want to say thank you to Russell Pierce. But again, on even a bigger note, a great day for America, a great day for Arizona. And without further ado, I want to pass over to my colleague, Representative John Fillmore. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. I'd like to emphasize that I too think this is a great victory for the state of Arizona. And I can't even begin to start to say how much I would underscore every one of the things that Senator Smith just said. We've finally gotten a little bit of clarity, a little bit of reality of what it was all about today when the Supreme Court did what was right. And they said that Arizona has a right to ask the citizens when they pull them over for an infraction or things of that nature, if there is a concern. This is not an issue and never has been an issue of the state of Arizona illegally looking at people because of race or color or anything of that nature. What this is about following the word of law. And I would like to especially extend out to Secretary Napolitano in the letter that she sent prior to her taking her present administration. Now that we have some clarification on what this is, and that the federal government, while it is not fully upholding the word of law, it is established that they have the supremacy in law when it comes to that immigration. And on that note, I would say that Janet Napolitano wrote a letter to the former head of Homeland Security, demanding some of the money that have been spending here in the state of Arizona. And I would ask the Secretary now to send us that money, which she acknowledged that when she asked for it years ago, belongs to the great state of Arizona. This underscores something that we all know we have to face, and that is that we now have an opportunity for conversation. We understand a little bit about what the rules are out there. It's not muddled anymore. So now the great state of Arizona can look forward to going forth and doing even more about what is required to secure our borders on behalf of the people of the state of Arizona. I would ask that other states not back off at all on taking a look at what the state of Arizona has done and use it as a building block to now move forward, because the reality of it is that the word of laws have to be done. I'm not as eloquent as some of the other members, so with that I'll turn it over to Representative Kavanaugh.
I was Representative John Fillmore, now Representative John Kavanaugh.
State Representative John Kavanaugh, today represents a great victory for the people of Arizona and for the rule of law. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the heart and soul of SB 1070, its key provision, in fact the only provision which most people ever spoke about, that section which allows police officers to reasonably stop and question illegal immigrants if they have reasonable suspicion, was found constitutional. That's a big win. We should also keep in mind that other sections of 1070 were already found constitutional by lower courts. The ban on sanctuary cities was found constitutional. The penalties for harboring or transporting illegal immigrants was found constitutional. The impoundment provisions were constitutional. It's true that today we lost 3 subsections of the law, and we could have used those subsections. But the heart and soul, the main part of SB 1070, is alive and well, and it will withstand future court challenges. Because that section which allows police officers with reasonable suspicion to stop and question possible illegal immigrants is already being done day after day by the Border Patrol. And our police officers receive the same training, the same lessons that the Border Patrol give to their individuals. How can it be racial profiling? How can it be illegal if it's being done every day, has been done for decades by the Border Patrol? We're simply adding state and local police to the Army to combat illegal immigration. It's a good win for Arizona. It's a good win for the U.S., especially if other states pick up and join us in this fight. And it'll be a bigger win if come January we elect a president who actually enforces our illegal immigration laws. Thank you.
Thank you, John. My name is Andy Biggs. I'm the Senate Majority Leader in Arizona. You know, 3 years ago, the work began on the legislation that ultimately became SB 1070. The bill's sponsor, former Senate President Russell Pierce, was instrumental. He led the charge on that. In fact, 10 years ago, when he was first serving in the State House of Representatives, and we saw Arizona dealing with the onslaught of the problems of illegal immigration, he helped lead the charge in getting referrals to the ballot, legislation to the floors of the houses, and then approved in the Senate to former Governor Napolitano, who vetoed some of those, and then the voter initiatives that came and changed the national debate on illegal immigration. So we owe a debt to Russell Pierce today. And today, as we look forward, this is a huge victory for the state of Arizona and SB 1070. Some of my colleagues have pointed out that SB 1070 remains largely intact. In fact, the very core and essence of it were 2 provisions: the sanctuary city policy, which remains intact today, and this, which was the Supreme Court called it Section 2B. What we forget is that there are other sections under Section 2 that also remain in force today. The ruling issued earlier today is a result directly that the Supreme Court realized what Arizona has been facing. If you look at page 6 of the majority opinion by Justice Kennedy, he iterates the many problems that the state of Arizona has as a direct result of the illegal immigration onslaught that we faced. Everything from the social welfare programs to the criminality that we see, the disproportionate criminality, where 9% of Maricopa County is thought to be illegal aliens, comprised of illegal aliens. 22% of the felonies committed in Maricopa County are also believed to be attributed directly to those who are in our nation illegally. When we look at the majority opinion by Justice Kennedy, signed onto by 4 additional justices, and then the 3 dissenting opinions with 1 partial concurrence, we see that it was unanimous that Section 2B is constitutional. It will go into effect immediately. I, with my colleagues, call on law enforcement to begin implementing the provisions of Section 2B, because that is now, as we thought it always was, constitutional. I just want to close before we take questions by saying this. Justice Anthony Scalia got it right in his dissent. When he starts talking about the sovereignty of the state of Arizona and the neglect by the executive branch in enforcing its laws, and then he questions and says, how can it be illegal or unconstitutional and disharmonious with state sovereignty to say that a state can evict or arrest those within its borders which are not legally here, which that state does not want to have here? I encourage you to read that opinion. It is very forceful, and if nothing else, SB 1070 was an assertion of our fundamental right as a sovereign state to enact laws to protect the citizens of this state. And so with that, I thank you for coming, and we have several others. I think Representative Carl Seal wants to say something, and Representative Michelle Ugenti is here. So I think Representative Seal will turn a few minutes over to him before we take questions. Representative Seal.
Thank you. Thank you. As one of the sponsors, as well, many of my colleagues of Senate Bill 1070 and weathering the storm of this, as my colleagues have said, my friend Russell Pearson, my political hero Russell Pierce, deserves a hearty thank you from the people of Arizona, which he did it because it's the right thing, and we're very, very proud of him. Sorry that he could not be here today. I'm sure he's here in spirit. Some of the elements that I've seen that 1070 clearly does and deals with, which is sanctuary cities. As a representative of the city of Phoenix and knowing of Operation Order 1.4.3 of the Phoenix Police Department, which tacitly gives illegal aliens a pass when it comes to enforcing our basic traffic laws and fundamental felonies, is now at an end. It should be clear to the people of Phoenix and the mayor and city council of Phoenix that Operation Order 1.4.3, giving illegal aliens a pass when it comes to enforcement of the law, is patently unconstitutional, and they should overturn it and correct it immediately. I also put in calls today to Justice Bolton's office to ask when she will be removing the restraining order or the barment to the enforcement of 1070 and lift those consistent with the Supreme Court ruling. I trust, too, that our Attorney General of this great state of ours will be submitting motions to do just that, so that justice can be fully implemented as quickly as possible, given all of the work put into this subject. So once again, I thank my esteemed colleagues for putting up a good fight for what this is today. And the people of Arizona have most certainly won. And when it comes to what the justices said about the costs attributed to the people of Arizona, I fully look forward to the federal government reimbursing the people of Arizona upwards of $1 billion of their tax dollars that have been absorbed by illegal aliens in their criminal justice system. So I trust that the federal government will soon return over $1 billion+ to the taxpayers of Arizona, so we can better balance our budget and stop hemorrhaging for the cost of illegal immigration. And once again, I thank my colleagues for the opportunity to be here today, and I'll yield the floor back to Senator Biggs.
Senator Biggs, the court's majority opinion acknowledged that there still may be questions and problems arising with the implementation of 2B on the ground. Would you acknowledge that as well?
The majority opinion did nothing more than state what happens with virtually every law that we turn over to law enforcement that deals with Fourth Amendment issues. and that is what, and we would anticipate that there will be clarification on 14th Amendment issues. But when you have, anytime you have search and seizure issues, what you will see happen is those are determined on an ad hoc, case-by-case basis, so that you have a whole litany of cases that interpret the Fourth Amendment, and that's what they were alluding to here. That's what they alluded to in the oral argument portion of the hearing held in April of this year as well.
Will you be looking at the opinion as a guide for drafting new laws, perhaps guide attempts to reinstate the provisions that were struck down?
I think that is in order. If you look at Justice Alito's opinion with regard to Section 6, which was struck down, he said, in fact, the state already has the authority to do that, that it was actually unnecessary for the state to enact that law. And if that were the case, if it's true, as he's implying, that we already have that delegated authority to make a warrantless arrest, then indeed we'll need to look at that and adjust our laws to conform with that.
Look, some of the Democratic
revoked the 287G state authority. Will that affect this ruling and affect SB 1070?
No, 287G is a different provision, and that's dealing with whether we can enforce certain immigration provisions. 2B doesn't deal with that at all.
Right, if ICE won't pick them up,
well, the question is, if ICE doesn't pick them up, what can you do? We can only do all we can do as a state. And we've attempted to do that over and over again. We can't help it if President Obama has just legitimated 1.4 million people who are here illegally. We can't do that if he instructs his departments not to enforce the law. That is the outrage that Americans feel right now. If you look at the Rasmussen poll that said 55% wanted SB 1070 to be upheld in its entirety, I would submit to you that that is a reflection of the fact that we have an executive branch that is tone deaf to the problems that states such as Arizona, who is the butt of all of the illegal immigration coming through this country, face. So 287G doesn't have anything to do with that.
I'd like to speak very briefly to the three provisions that the Supreme Court found unconstitutional today. Those were placed there because the bill's chief author, Senator Russell Pierce, predicted years ago that the Obama administration at some point would simply stop enforcing our immigration laws. And they had pretty much done that a few months ago when they said only illegals who were apprehended who have serious criminal records will be deported. Predicting that, Senator Pierce was wise to place into the law those three provisions which made certain acts that illegal immigrants performed within the state of Arizona state crimes, so that when we called ICE and they said, I'm sorry, the president won't let us enforce the immigration law, we could have held them on state law. It's unfortunate that we lost those three provisions. And what we need to do is get a president in January who will obey his or her oath to enforce the laws of this country.
Two questions. You mentioned you have a message to law enforcement at this point. Can you reiterate what that message is? And also, second question, are we going to see any more immigration enforcement, strict enforcement kind of bills next legislative session?
Question with regard, I'll take number two first, which is, will we see more bills dealing with strict enforcement of immigration issues? I would imagine with the result of the validation of SB 1070 today, and with some provisions that probably need some clarification and work, I would anticipate some form of legislation by one of my 90 colleagues, who I can't crystal ball and see what each one of them has in mind.
Is it to clarify 1070, or is it add additional laws?
I would submit to you that I can't predict that. I think that when we begin looking at the executive orders of the President of the United States, as Representative Kavanaugh pointed out, my colleagues are well aware of the policies that have been enacted by this administration. I think that you're going to see us explore what we can and what we cannot do to protect the citizens of the state of Arizona.
Andy, you're an attorney, and you said that the courts validated 1070, but as I read the opinion, they affirmed that they did not affirm Section 2B. They just said it's true. We gotta wait. We gotta let it run and see if there's harm done.
What they said is it's facially okay, which is a legal term to say right now it's fine. What they're going to do, and this goes to the question I was taking earlier with regard to Fourth Amendment issues. If there is a problem, it's going to arise as in conflict with the Fourth Amendment, which is what we saw in the oral argument. But the reality is, we have the authority. They also suggested that we might have had the authority to do that already. So the reality is we get back to this idea that this is being determined on an ad hoc basis, case by case basis, and I would submit to you that Section 2B does not violate the Fourth Amendment, which is exactly what they're getting at. We aren't in violation of that there, and I don't think we're going to be in violation.
Your message to law enforcement.
Message to law enforcement is, if you have a policy that prevents your officers from checking the immigration status of those who you lawfully detain or arrest, you need to get yourselves in compliance immediately, if not sooner, with Section 2B.
Did anybody speak to Russell this morning?
I'm sure someone spoke with Russell this morning.
You didn't say it, but I think
I had an opportunity to make contact with Senator.
What was his reaction?
I'll let him speak to that himself.
just a quick follow-up. It wasn't you said it. It was Senator Smith said that this upholds the 10th Amendment rights of the state. I didn't read the opinion that way. In fact, Justice Scalia essentially that was the gist of his complaint, that this majority opinion does not uphold the state's 10th Amendment rights. It's not a victory in that sense.
Is that a question or a comment?
That's a question.
I would tell you that I agree with Justice Scalia's response to the majority opinion. They have abused the state's right. I believe that they have abused the 10th Amendment when Justice Scalia gets in there and specifically says that a state that can't enforce its borders is no sovereign at all, and that this constitutional republic grants each state or recognizes each state's sovereignty. Not grants it, we already had it, but recognizes it. That it's a travesty to see what the what the majority did, what Justice Kennedy, Justice Roberts, Justice Breyer, Justice Ginsburg, and Justice Sotomayor did today.
It's not a victory.
I would suggest to you that for me, I view it as further imperilement of the 10th Amendment, further imperilement of states' rights. I'm further concerned by it. So,
what impact do you think this will have on businesses?
the question is, what impact will it have on businesses and tourism in the area? I don't think it will have any impact at all. Any others? Hey, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.